Hello, sixth graders. Hello to some of my favorite students. Hope you had a good weekend. It is Monday morning and we are ready for lesson 14 in our math, page 54. And hope you're excited and ready to go at it. We have today and tomorrow left for our math lessons. Goodness, we're so close, guys. So let's look at our lesson today. Last week we talked about making a recipe. You guys remember what recipe we had last week? We had a strawberry shortcake recipe, and I'm curious if any of you guys made it. I know one person in your class made shortcake. I have a gnat flying around. Talk to Cheyenne. Her and Starla decided to stir up that shortcake and see how it was, and her family was very impressed with the recipe. So if you guys have strawberries and you like shortcake, stir up a batch of shortcake, put some smashed strawberries on it, put some Cool Whip on the top. Woo! It is so good. But the recipe today that we're looking at is Play-Doh. And last week we were halving the recipe. Halving? We're making a recipe smaller. Yes, we halved the recipe. And this week, we are going to make a recipe larger. Okay, it says Andrea wants to triple, that means 3 times, her recipe for Play-Doh. So she has enough for the 15 children who are expected at the family reunion. Write the tripled amounts in the recipe below. Okay, if you look to the right, in your box, it has a Play-Doh recipe, and it's got flour, alum, cornstarch, salt, oil, and water. And then it tells you how to make it. But let's look over on our number 1, 2, and 3. So when we triple something, that means we need to multiply whatever measure we have, we need to multiply it times 3 because we need to make 3 batches of it, okay? So if we look at flour, the recipe calls for 2 cups of flour. If we're going to make 3 batches of flour, we need to multiply our cup, which is 2, and we need to multiply it times 3 because we're making 3 batches, okay? So we need 6 cups of flour. Put that in your blank. 1A, we need 6 cups. If you look at 1B is the salt. How much salt do we need? We need a cup of salt. Goodness, that stuff is salty. All right, so if we need to make 3 batches, we need 3 cups of salt because we need to go 1 times 3. All right, on number 2A is the alum. How much alum do we need? We need 1 tablespoon. If we're making 3 batches, we need to go 1 times 3 is 3. We need 3 tablespoons of alum. And 2B is the oil. The recipe calls for a tablespoon of salad oil, and we need to make 3 batches, so we need 3 tablespoons of oil. All right, on number 3A, this one's not quite as simple, maybe to do it in your head, but you can multiply times 3, which the cornstarch, it's a half a cup of cornstarch. So if you have a half a cup, we're going to go half times 3, which is 3 over 2 equals, let's put it into a proper fraction. You're going to go 2 into 3, goes 1 time, and you have 1 left over. It's 1 1/2. Another way you can do it is you can say 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2. You have 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1. 1 plus 1/2 is 1 1/2. But it's probably quicker to go 1/2 times 3. All right, so you're going to need 1.5 cups of cornstarch. Looking at your water, the recipe calls for 2 cups of water. And if you're making 3 batches, you need to go 2 times 3 and it would be 6 cups of water. Now you can do that with any recipe. If you need to make 4 batches, you would multiply times 4. If you need to double your batches, you just double it. You would just go times 2. But multiply times however many times you need to increase your recipe. That's how you make a recipe larger. It is not hard. All right, and that is all that you have for today. That was just about too easy. Looking at the rest of your lesson on page 55 on your We Remember, you have a word problem on number 4. Says the cookie recipe calls for 5½ cups of flour. Grandma wants to make 1/4 of the recipe. How much flour should she use? All right, so she is actually downsizing. She's only going to do 1/4 of a batch. So you can multiply 1/4. Remember, last week we were making 1/2 of a batch and we multiplied times 1/2. This time she's making 1/4 of the batch. So you multiply times 1/4. Put 5½ into an improper fraction. Go 2 times 5 plus 1, put it into an improper fraction, and then multiply times 1/4. And it's going to come out to an improper fraction, but just put it into a proper fraction, okay? So your answer is a proper fraction. Watch number 6. Some of you guys are still, when you're finding one side, if you're only finding one side, watch your label. You don't put squared, okay? You're just finding one side. Remember perimeter, you're finding one side. Just put whatever your label is. Don't put centimeters squared, inches squared. It's just one side. 7 and 8 are extra credits. If you get those right, you get 1 point extra credit. It looks like you're going to be looking at that map on the right and coming up with an answer. Page 57. Be careful when you figure the savings account problem. Page number 22. Watch what they're asking. Like A says, how much is Lucy's tithe? Okay, they give you how much she has, how much she makes, and then it says how much she plans to tithe. Watch that. Just be careful with that. Make sure you follow instructions. And then it says how much money does she put into her savings account. Okay, so she gets a paycheck, she's going to tithe some, and then she's going to put a percentage into her savings. And then how much does she have left after paying her dad? So she makes a certain amount. She's going to put some in tithes. She's going to put some in her savings account. She's got to give her dad some. How much is left over after she takes all that out? Okay. And on number 23 is a word problem. It's a recipe. It says this recipe serves 12, so she will need to make 8 batches. So your recipe, you're going to need to multiply times what? Times the amount of batches she has to make, okay? All right. Have a good day. That was a quick lesson. Does not look like it's going to take you really long. Do your very best, and I shall see you tomorrow.